You train harder than almost anyone you know. You show up early, you stay late, you drill the same shots 1,000 times, and in the gym, you're dangerous. Your training partners know it, your coaches know it, and most importantly, you know it. But the moment the competition day comes, something shifts. You tighten up, you second guess, you play it safe, and you walk away knowing you left your real game in the locker room. The game that you knew you should have been able to perform at the beginning, we left it back in there with us before we walked out. Now, that gap, the gap between who you are in training and who you are when it counts, it's not a talent problem like we may think. It's a mental performance problem, but it's 100% fixable, and that's why we're here. My name is Dylan Nadler. I'm a mental performance coach and former Team Canada Taekwondo athlete myself, and today I'm the founder of MindLock. I work with high-performance athletes across all sports, everything from UFC, Bellator, PFL, into NCAA, Olympics, and more. And really, my job is to make sure that you are getting the absolute best version of yourself every time you go out there and you compete. And today in this video, I'm going to break down exactly why the practice to competition gap happens, why it even exists, and actually what goes on underneath it. So what's really going on behind the scenes, and really most importantly, the specific things you can do to close it. That's why we're here, not just to identify what's there, but to figure out what can you do to close that gap. And by the end of this video, you'll have a clear picture of why it's happening to you, a framework you can apply before your next training session, and an honest look at what it takes to actually fix it for good. Not kind of once in a while, not kind of putting the rug over the problem, but fixing it for good. So let's get into it. Here's something that most athletes get completely wrong about this problem. First of all, is they think that the gap between training and competition is a confidence issue or a nerves issue or a focus issue. And sure, like those things show up, but their symptoms are not necessarily the root cause. And there's a difference there. The root cause is this, is you've built a house, but you don't have the key. And I think this is a good analogy that kind of paints a picture of what this kind of feels like. Think about it this way. Every hour you've spent in the gym, every sparring round, every drill, every conditioning session, you've been building a house, an incredible one with a strong foundation, more like a mansion, really, at the end of the day, solid walls, the whole thing. But when the competition day comes, like, you need a key to get in, right? And that key becomes your mental game. And most athletes, even serious, disciplined, the most hardworking athletes, have just never built that part, right? So what happens is you show up on fight day to a house you've spent years building, and you're standing outside of it, all that work, all that preparation, locked behind a door that you can't open, which is like the most frustrating feeling. And that's the gap. It's not that you're not good enough, it's that you just don't have the tools to reliably access what you've built. That's the difference. You've got this house, but how do we have the key to unlock the door basically on demand, the way that you should, the way that you deserve to feel? And here's the thing about that, is that it should make you feel, pretty good or pretty hopeful, is that if you've put in the physical work and you're still underperforming, okay, it just means that the upside is massive, because you don't need to get better at fighting, you just need to get better at competing, or whatever your sport is. You don't need to have more skill, we just need to have a better job translating that skill under the lights when it really matters the most, okay? And they're just two completely different factors that are at play. So let's first talk about why training doesn't automatically transfer, right? Because this is the part that most coaches just don't tell you. It almost feels assumed, well, if I put the work in, it should transfer and translate. Well, when you train, the environment is very predictable, right? You know your training partners, you know the space, you know roughly what's coming. Your brain is in a very kind of low threat state. And in that state, your technique flows, your timing's on, you feel good, as you usually feel in training most of the time. Now, competition, on the other hand, is the opposite, right? It's a different environment. It's an unknown opponent for the most part. Judges, crowd, coaches, cameras. I mean, like, your brain registers all of that as a threat. And the moment your brain goes into threat mode, it starts pulling resources away from the parts that handle skilled, fluid movement and redirecting them towards survival, right? If there's a moment of threat, your brain goes into survival mode, and it's not really thinking about fluid performance at that point. Now, I don't want you to think that's a weakness, because it's not. It's just biology. But we don't have to accept it as it is. We can always find a way through it. Not just a way around it, but a way through. So the problem is that most athletes just have no plan for that moment, right? Like, you've trained your body to perform, but you haven't trained your mind to perform under these specific circumstances, right? And that's what it's about. It's training your mind to perform under these specific conditions. That can be the difference between, what you end up with results-wise and, maybe what we've been seeing more recently. So a question that I want you to sit with is, when was the last time you specifically trained for what competition day feels like? Not physically, but mentally, okay? Most athletes can't really answer that because they've never done it. And that's the gap. It's not that competition reveals your weaknesses. It's that competition reveals what you haven't yet prepared for, which sounds similar but can be different. Now, the good news, mental prep is a skill. And like every other skill, it can be trained, and it can be trained deliberately. And that's what mental performance coaching actually is. It's not just journaling and breathing exercises. It's building specific personalized systems that let you access your best when the stakes are at its highest. That's really what it all comes down to, is the access to your skill, not just the development of new ones. We're developing mental skills, but physically, I'm not the one that's kind of taking you through your workouts while we're in the gym. That's where the difference kind of plays out. So what's that actually look like in practice? These are the three things that will make the absolute biggest difference. So number one is what we call process goals, okay? Process goals. Most athletes walk into a competition thinking about the outcome, right? Thinking about the win, getting the finish, not losing, impressing the crowd, whatever the case may be. And that's exactly what kills performance. It doesn't strengthen it. It really kills your performance. And here's why. Because when you're focused on the outcome, your brain is always scanning for that gap between where you are now and where you want to be. And that scanning creates a sense of anxiety, right? And anxiety tightens everything, like your movement, your decision making, your ability to pull the trigger. Anxiety is really just like a lack of perceived control. And when we're thinking only about the outcome, only about the results, we don't really feel directly tied to that outcome. Our perception of control goes down and anxiety goes up. So what process goals do, which is different, is instead of thinking, I need to win this game or I need to win this fight or whatever it is, you're thinking, I'm going to keep my hands up, work the jab, I'm going to control the distance, manage the ring, pressure forward, trust my timing. These are process goals, right? If you're a basketball player, you're not just saying, I want to drop 30 points and win this game. It's, I want to scan the floor, I want to be mobile, I want to make good passes, be in position, have good technique on my shots, communicate with my team, right? So we're thinking about not just the outcome of what we want, but the process that we can follow along the way, the specific steps that don't just say like, what does success look like, but what are the things that I need to do within my performance to generate the best performance that I possibly can. That's what we're thinking about. Again, it's not just what is it that I want, but what do I need to do throughout my performance to deliver the best of my potential. That's what it really comes down to. So there are things you actually can control, and that's what we're talking about here. And when you're locked into what you can control, your brain stops scanning for threats, your body relaxes, and your skills finally come out. And that could be a big key unlock there, right? The result is just a byproduct of the process every single time, right? Focused on the process, and the performance tends to take care of itself. And if it doesn't, we get a lot closer than if we weren't thinking about that. So that's number one. Number two are going to be attitude goals. So this one is something that most athletes never even consider, is the concept of like, well, what's an attitude goal? You know, you've set performance goals, technique goals, conditioning goals, but have you ever set a goal around how you need to feel in order to compete? So not just thinking, what do I need to do to get the job done, but how do I need to feel the moment I go in there in order to make that happen? We're kind of priming, right? That's what an attitude goal is it's almost like a psychological priming that allows us to have the right mindset that we need to execute more of the skill-based performance goals that we have. So before a competition, you ask yourself, what emotional state do I need to be in to perform at my best? Again, not what you think you should feel, but what actually works for you, right? We don't need to rely on what your teammate or coach is, or like what they feel to get into their zone. How do I need to feel to get into my zone and compete at my best, right? Some athletes need to be fired up, high energy, aggressive, on edge. Others need to be more calm, focused, almost cold. Some need music, some need silence. I mean, everybody's different. Some like to laugh with their teammates and be social. Some want to be alone and isolated. There's really no right way to do anything, just what's right for you. And I think that's a good thing to remember. There's no right way, but there's just what's right for you, okay? Elite performers, they don't just leave it to chance. They know their optimal state. They know it, right? We're not hoping. We're not playing a game of hope. We want to have that knowledge and execute it. They know their optimal state. They know how to get there, and they have a routine that gets them there consistently every single time. Not once in a while, not only on a good day, but every single time consistently. They have a routine that can back this up, and that becomes an attitude goal. And it's one of the most underused mental tools in all sports. So most people just don't think about it. They think, we can set goals around our actions, but what about our mindset? Again, I would say the better you feel, the better you're probably going to do, right? So if we can agree, if that's not a controversial statement, that the better you feel, the better you're probably going to do, well, how come we can't set some goals around that, right? Our attitude impacts our actions. We're so caught up in kind of action-based goals. What about thinking about the mindset, right? What mindset do I need to have when I walk in there to compete in order to deliver the best performance I'm capable of? It becomes that kind of priming thing. And then that leads us to number 3, which is deliberately training your mind for competition conditions, okay? This is a big one. You can't show up on competition day expecting your mind to perform in an environment that it's just never trained for, or it's foreign, or you see it very rarely, right? Think about it. I mean, if you had a competition in a 10,000 seat arena, you do everything you could to simulate that, right? You do like big training sessions with people watching, you'd practice, in front of a crowd, you'd stimulate that adrenaline as best as you can. Now, your mental prep needs to be the exact same. It just has to, right? We need to be able to kind of get those circumstances and simulate it to the best of our potential. So it means practicing visualization, right? Not like passive daydreaming or thinking about only the highlights, but specific, vivid mental rehearsal of competition scenarios, right? So that means developing self-talk patterns that can keep you grounded when things go wrong in the competition. It means building a pre-competition routine that you'd run every single time so your nervous system knows, hey, this is what we do, this is what comes next, and we're ready, right? So we want to be able to kind of reframe, take negatives, spit them out into positives, and have a really good self-talk framework that can process things as they are and spit out something a little bit more productive, right? So they're not just soft skills that we're talking about, like we're really talking about weapons, and the athletes who have them, the ones who deliberately train their mental game the way they train their body, those are the ones who show up as the same person in competition as they are in training. And that's all we can ask for, is just show up on competition day with the same potential, the same version of yourself that you've seen from yourself before. Like, that's what we want, to be the best version of yourself, nothing more and nothing less. But I want to be direct about something. A lot of athletes try to close this gap on their own. Maybe you're in a position where you've tried on your own. Maybe that's why we're here watching this video, to kind of see what else is out there. Maybe you listen to podcasts, watch motivational videos, journal a little bit. I mean, a lot of athletes, they just try to like hype themselves up before a competition with music, whatever it is. And listen, like, none of that's bad, but it's not really mental training either. It's not deliberate, okay? Mental training is specific. It just has to be. It's personalized. It's built around who you are as a competitor and what your specific mental blocks are. It's practiced consistently over time. It's not just pulled out in competition week when you're already stressed and you're looking for something to grab onto. Think about it this way, right? Like you wouldn't fix a hole in your striking or in your technique, whatever your sport is, by just watching a couple of YouTube videos and hoping for the best. You drill it, right? You would drill the skill over and over again until you get it right. You get, some mat time with someone who knows what they're looking at. You get specific feedback. Again, if you're working on, an element of your shot, if you're a hockey player, right? You don't just watch YouTube videos or TikToks on certain shot techniques. Like, you get on the ice and you drill it. You get a goalie in there, you get a coach watching, and you rep it until you figure out what works best for you. It needs to be actionable. It needs to be tangible. It needs to be personalized for you, right? So the mental game is just no different. The gap between training and competition does not close by itself. That's the biggest thing. It just doesn't. It closes when you build a system for it, the same way you've built a system for everything else, okay? So here's the bottom line. Listen, if you're the kind of athlete who shows up every day, who puts in the work, who knows you're better than your recent results, this is the missing piece. I mean, there's no other way to say it, really. It's not more training. It's not a different coach. It's not a different camp or team altogether. It's the key to the house you've already built. Remember that example from the beginning? You've got this mansion, this beautiful mansion. You've designed it. We need the key to access it, and we need it on demand, right? And if you want my help in doing this, go in the description and let's have a conversation. Let's talk about it. If you want to actually close that gap, not someday, but in the next training camp, I work one-on-one with serious athletes, through our mental performance coaching program at MindLock. We build your toolbox from the ground up, everything personalized, everything tailored to how you compete. The athletes that I work with personally, they don't just perform better once in a while, they perform consistently, right? They stop leaving their ideal best performances in their real game in the locker room. And I can imagine that that's, again, like one of the biggest frustrations ever is knowing what you're capable of and not always having that translate into the competition. At the very least, we deserve to go out there and just perform at the highest range of our potential. So again, if you want my help in doing this, go in the description and let's have a conversation about it. The link to chat with me is right below the video. So hit that one and hope to see you there.